Welcome to VintageTech, where we're going to do the math and talk about a Jaguar. The Atari Jaguar, my ad. This was the first ever 64-bit game system, 3 years before Nintendo 64 came out on the market. Problem here is that Atari game systems, not computers, after 2600 tend to flop in the marketplace, and this one is no exception. As such, it was Atari's last home game system until their new VCS system. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves, let's start talking about the system. Now, before I start talking about the Jaguar itself, I need to talk about the canceled Panther. Development on the system began in 1988 as a planned successor to both the Atari 7800 and XEGS. It was developed by Flare Technology, which is, funny enough, the same people who worked on the canceled Flare 1 and Conix multimedia systems. So, it was no surprise that the Panther also suffered the same fate. The Panther was abandoned in favor of the Jaguar, released in 1993, claimed to be the first ever 64-bit system, in a rather odd twist, believe it or not, with the tagline, "Do the math." But we'll get back to it. The system was a huge commercial and critical failure, causing Atari to exit the console market altogether for a while. Now time for tech specs. The Jaguar is powered by a Motorola 68000 CPU, the same processor that powers the Amiga and the Atari ST. But the co-processors that powered the Jaguar are mainly up to 64 bits. And that is where the infamous "Do the math" tagline refers to. The processors are called Tom and Jerry. So for the funny, I'll let the titular duo demonstrate. Tom is the chip that powers the Jaguar's 32-bit graphics, 64-bit object processor, 64-bit blitter, and DRAM for 8, 16, 32, and 64-bit. Jerry, on the other hand, powers the DSP and RASC core, the sound for C-quality sound with 2 DACs and several sound channels that are limited by the software, wavetable synthesis, a clock block, and joystick controls. The Jaguar also has 2 megabytes of RAM, cards can hold up to 6 megabytes of ROM, as well as the DSP port for the JagLink, the port for the AV cable to go to, the RF connector, the power connector, and support for the COM-Link to connect the Atari links to the system. Because of the 2 processor design, combined with software tools being released in a buggy state, it was notoriously difficult to program games for the system. Now we need to talk about the controller for the system. The system has 3 face buttons, like the Sega Genesis / Mega Drive, a D-pad, an option button, pause button, and a numeric keypad. Yeah, Atari brought back a dead fad for the Jaguar system. If you don't know, back in the day, the ColecoVision, Intellivision, and Atari 5200 had numeric keypads that allowed use of overlays and rather other things. Oh, wait. Skip a pair. And the Jaguar add that in. It should be noted that the bomb 3 keys are not used for games, but rather other things. 0 is used for mute and in-game music, while pound and star are used for restarting the console. Believe it or not, there are actually 2 versions of 3-button controller. The early ones have gray keys and a smoother D-pad, while the later ones has black keys and a slightly stiffer D-pad. So keep that in mind when collecting Jaguar stuff. Later on, Atari released a 6-button Pro controller with 2 short buttons on the top. This controller is used for refined and FPS games. Yet they keep the keypad on the controller despite it sounding useless. Why is that? Well, what you do not realize is that they took a few buttons on the keypad and mapped them to the add buttons. They are not separate buttons. Why did Atari do this? Well, my guess is to make sure that the controller is compatible with all Jaguar titles. Something that the Sega Gen 6-button controller had issues with 3-button games, unless if you held the mode button down. So in a way, a Jaguar Pro controller is a predecessor to modern Elite controllers for Xbox, in terms of Pro use, like mapping, buttons, and whatnot. In addition to the Pro controller, Atari had plans for more peripherals for the Jaguar, including a VR headset, long before VR gaming became mainstream. But due to the commercial failure of this system, those plans were cancelled. Save for a view we'll be talking about. The Team Tap was a multi-tap for the Atari Jaguar that allows for 4 controller support, or 8 if you have 2 of them. However, the adapter only works with the optionally bundled White Man Can't Jump and NBA Jam Tournament Edition. The JagLink is a cable that allows 2 Jaguar consoles to be linked together. It plugs into the Jaguar's DSP port and connects via a standard RJ45 cable. Now you can play Doom's Deathmatch with 2 Jaguars if you have a friend who also has a console! However, the one we need to talk about, is the Atari Jaguar CD, released in 1995. Yeah, Atari needed to extend the Jaguar's shelf life a little longer, but failed, and there were only 13 games released for the peripheral. And the peripheral design looking like a toilet didn't help either. On the plus side, The Jag CD came with a built-in virtual light machine developed by Jeff Minter. How the VLM works is that if you place a CD in the VLM compatible device, something akin to a modern music player, will play flashy colors in tandem with music. Something used today with things like Winamp and other media players. The Jaguar CD came with a Blue Lightning, VidGrid, and the Tempest 2000 soundtrack, and a demo CD of Myst. Yeah, the game that made CD-ROM mainstream was available for Jaguar CD. While the Jag CD was going on paper, the damage was done, and with 13 games, combined with releasing 12 days after US release of PS1, it failed horribly. That was one of the many contributions to the Jaguar's failure, along with the games being hard to develop for. Another contribution to this was the lack of proper marketing, lack of cutting-edge games that took advantage of the system, well, save for Tempest 2000, as well as indirectly ending the bit wars. Yeah, that last one is theory, but it's still a contributing factor. The Jaguar was discontinued in 1996, and Atari Corporation was closed down and merged into JTS. Then, in 1998, JTS sold the Atari name to Hasbro Interactive, who later used the name and published retro-themed remakes of games. Then, in 2001, Hasbro sold the Hasbro Interactive to Infogrames, who then changed their name to Atari, and as such, they still exist to this day. They ended up acquiring several IPs, including Berserk, as well as Atari Age, Moby Games, Night Dive Studios, and even Digital Eclipse. They returned to the console market with the new Atari VCS, which is basically a game console and computer all in one, that can not only play classic Atari titles, but also modern indie games, an idea you see today with stuff like the Evercade line, which, funny enough, also has Atari titles. Atari not only releases new games on their VCS, but also other consoles. As for the Jaguar games themselves, some were good and even great, notably Tempest 2000 and Alien vs. Predator, but others were a mixed bag, like the Pac-Man title, Cybermorph, and its infamous line,
"Where did you learn to fly?"
What's worse is that the retail version ended up becoming more buggy than the pack-in version, as, while I was doing my research on this video, I usually reference FrameRaid's video on all 50 Jaguar carts. I saw this comment by BombJack1984 discovering new info about that game. But I need to discuss the Doom port for the system. That port served as the basis for many future ports of the game. The port itself was done by id Software themselves. The only thing missing from that version is music, including the iconic song. However, there's a good reason for that. It developed the game on the DSP code processor that handles collision. Because of it, there weren't enough cycles to handle music. But still, Jaguar Doom is one of the best ports on the system. I should also mention that the Rayman series got its own Atari Jaguar. Well, in Europe to be exact. Now, what was the system itself in the aftermath? Well, the molds for the Jaguar were purchased by Imagine Systems, who started to incorporate the molds for their hot rod dental equipment. Then in 2014, Mike Kennedy purchased the molds and started to create a new gaming system funded through Kickstarter, with partnership from Coleco called Coleco Chameleon. But that's a story for another day. But here's the question. Are hobbyists still making games with the system? Surprisingly, yes. This is due to console's patents being released into the public domain, and the console is now an open platform. It's crazy to think that the patents for the Atari Jaguar have fallen to the public domain and made the system a good homebrew system, much like the Vectrex and Dreamcast. With that said, this episode of VintageTech is finished. Next episode, we're going to go back into reality and talk about the compact cassette. Hey guys, it's me. Sorry for the long delay. I had some issues, depression, and family drama. But after all that, it's finally over. Yeah, this episode was also a nightmare to work on. But luckily, I added in different sections instead of using the master scene approach. So if you're wondering why this took a bit longer, you'll know why. Now, on that note, if you're wondering why I got some of the images for the Jaguar's motherboard, the Atari 5200 controller, as well as one of the overlays. Well, I decided to buy the Atari 50 collection for Xbox Series X. And primarily the reason why I bought it was to capture both Tempest 2000 and Cybermorph. You know, the former being one of the best games of time and the latter being a mixed bag pack-in. But after playing it, this had some information that this was a last-ditch effort. Oh, and one more thing. While I was actually working on this episode, the first of the two DLC got released. Well, at least as of I'm recording this. Anyway, I guess that's it. Oh, a little update. If you are wondering why videos have been slow to camera, well, one of the legs for the tripod broke, and I'll be getting a new one soon. But for now, rest easy, videos will continue. I'll see you later.